to go to Steve Moore, what he makes of that, best-selling author, former Trump senior economic advisor. Steve, I don't know where this goes, but I'm wondering if the president knows it doesn't go very far, but he's calling out Republicans to say, I have a plan to shore up Medicare. Where's yours? What do you think?
Well, look, it is true. This budget, thank God, is going nowhere. I've been in this business for 35 years, and I would have to say this is a fiscal atrocity. It's probably the worst budget I've seen in terms of what its impact would be on the economy. It would be a killer. We'd have the highest tax rates in the world. We'd have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. Our personal income tax rates would go maybe not to the highest in the world, but pretty close to that. So none of that is going to go anywhere with the Republican House. But here's why this is so important, Neil. This is sort of the blueprint for where progressive Democrats want to take the country. And I think it's really indicative that there's no cuts in here, that it's all tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. It would be ruinous for the economy, and Republicans should be putting out in a completely different course from this.
All right. Now, we just showed a very busy, and our people are brilliant here, but we showed a busy of what the president plans to do. I could have saved them the trouble and just said, how much do you have? Give it to us. It might have been simpler to just do it that way. But, you know, the one thing that comes up, Steve, in this discussion is whether the president is sending a signal maybe on this entitlement stuff that he recognizes that they're not sustainable, but he's going to fix it just raising taxes and zeroing in on the rich and not addressing the unsustainability of the way it pays out now. And you could extend that to Social Security. His fix down the road, if there is one, is going to be on just higher FICA-related taxes and leave it at that. That's not the answer, is it? Yeah.
Here's the point. What these programs like Social Security and Medicare depend on the most is economic growth. You got to grow the economy. You got to get people working. You got to get higher real wages for workers. If you don't do that, these programs will plunge into bankruptcy even sooner than the official forecast. So my point is, all of these tax increases are going to put a huge hole in the economy. They're going to slow growth. We'll be lucky if we can grow at 1.5% at these growth rates, and you're not going to be able to produce the revenues you need to make the program solvent. So I think this is actually, by the way, we have a new study that's coming out early next week. I'll give you a sneak preview. Just the lower growth from Biden being in office over the last 2 years has taken about almost $1 trillion out of the Medicare and Social Security trust funds because we don't have the number of people working, we don't have the wages, and we don't have enough GDP.
You know, it's interesting, and it doesn't get as much attention, but bringing the capital gains rate up to almost 40%, in other words, at the top income level, presently 39.6%, and leaving aside the extra 5% that the president wants the well-to-do people like you, Steve, to pay to shore it up. You're talking a federal tax for a large swath of Americans at 45%. I haven't even gotten into, you know, state taxes in New York, of course, New Jersey, and some of these high-tax states that would bring your tax burden to over 60% quite easily.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And you just left out one thing that's also in this budget is that for the first time, I think, in history of the country, Joe Biden wants to tax unrealized capital gains. That is, if you own stock and it rises in value, the Biden administration wants to tax you even though you haven't sold it. That is unprecedented. Now, think about what impact. Look, this is a show for investors. Think about what impact that would have on the stock market if you actually raise the capital gains tax to anywhere near 40%, then tax people on their unrealized capital gains. This would just be an absolute sock right in the nose of every investor, everyone.
There would be no reason for you to invest. I mean, if whether you sell or not, you're still looking at paying close to 40%.
By the way,
you're not going to
invest.
You're just not going to invest.
And you're not going to get any revenue. Even the Congressional Budget Office has estimated that the amount of the revenue maximizing rate on capital gains is somewhere around 20%. They're talking about twice the rate that actually maximizes revenue. In other words, you understand this, Neil, we'd be on the wrong side of the Laffer curve. We'd have a tax rate so high it wouldn't raise any revenues, and it would cause, I think, a massive massive sell-off of 1929 proportions if anything like this ever happened.
You know, one other thing I wanted to touch on, we're showing you that the CBO sees a $46 trillion public debt in the next 10 years. What's left out of that is the spending that they estimate will be about $2 trillion in deficits year in and year out for the next 10 years, which actually brings that figure well over $50 trillion. So these are using base figures, using real figures right now in real time and real inflation. You're talking about, $20 trillion in more debt and a plan that says, all right, with this plan, it's going to be $3 trillion less than that. In other words, it will be maybe only $17 or $18 trillion more than the debt we have now. That's hardly a victory march.
Hardly. And don't forget, Biden, in his first 2 years in office, has already increased the debt over that 10-year period by about $7 trillion. So, in other words, if we just stuck with the Trump programs, the 10-year forecast would be $7 trillion lower. So, folks, don't be confused by this or tricked by this. This isn't a president who's reduced the debt, although he says that all the time. He has probably increased the debt more than any other president in American history. And this budget isn't going to do. Well, by the way, can't they find something to cut in the budget? I mean, we have a $6.5 trillion budget. They can't find anything to cut?
No, it's very difficult to do. But, no offense to your old boss. I mean, he racked up the debt as well, almost $8 trillion. Now, to be fair, a lot of that was with COVID-related spending. But again, presidents of either party have had a devil of a time, you
better believe it,
walking the talk here. And I'm just wondering, we can't keep going like this, Steve.
At some point, there will be a financial crisis. I don't know if it's going to be in 6 months or a year or 2 years, but you're right. We can't stay on this path of massive, out-of-control government spending and massive debt. I mean, Neil, point to a single country in the history of the world where this kind of economic strategy worked, because I can't find one.
Well, I know where it didn't work, Italy. So they kept going through prime ministers. But the food's delicious, so they balanced it out. They balanced it out.
What about Venezuela? What about Argentina? What about Mexico? What about Bolivia? What about Greece? I mean, it just doesn't work. It always crash lands.
Yeah, and we could be headed to that. Speaking of which, Steve, thank you very, very much.